You're live.
I am alive. Living for love.
Oh, yeah. How are you?
Sick. How are you?
I'll probably be sick tomorrow then. Great. Um, Today's April Fool's Day.
Oh shit! It is.
Uh, I don't know. Why did we choose Pam Grier?
Because we've been meaning to.
Sure. I mean, she's a good choice. So the options were Friday Foster, Sheba Baby, Coffee, Black Mama, White Mama, and Foxy Brown. And Foxy Brown got more than half of the votes. Who would you have voted for? Or who did you vote
I
for?
voted for Coffee, which is my favorite of these, which is the same director, Jack Hill. And the reason we chose these five, it's kind of that core component of where Pam Grier stands out in a leading role and it kind of redefined, the blaxploitation cycle. And it's probably the best remembered star of those. But, I much prefer, of course, her performance in Jackie Brown, which gives her a lot more agency. But of these five, Coffee is my favorite.
I would have voted for Sheba Baby,
Okay.
just because I don't remember that one.
Okay. But I think you've watched all of these with me at some point.
I've seen all of them, but honestly, I don't remember any of them. But Sheba Baby's the one I really don't remember.
And by the time Sheba Baby and Friday Foster come at the end of the cycle, so they already feel a lot more watered down. There's usually less nudity in these ones, according because Coffee and Foxy Brown, there's nudity, rape. They're a lot more heavy-handed, I think, with the racism.
Okay, so Foxy Brown, 1974, directed by
Jack Hill.
What do we know him from?
He also directed Coffee.
Oh.
I think this is his fourth film with Pam Grier. He directed The Big Birdcage and The Big Dollhouse. Those were part of those exploitation films. He comes out of the 60s, kind of that Corman school of filmmaking. And I actually, another film worth checking out of his is a late 60s movie called Spider Baby, starring Sid Haig, who shows up, and he liked using Sid, who shows up in this film as well.
Oh, right. Yeah.
But in The Swinging Cheerleaders, came kind of after Foxy Brown at the end of his career. He's an interesting director, but like a lot of these white men, I think we're just rolling along with opportunity, much like Larry Cohen, who I think was a director that, cut his teeth in blaxploitation, but did much better things.
For those who didn't watch the movie, the plot's pretty simple. Pam Grier plays a character named Foxy Brown. Her boyfriend is like an undercover DE agent type person. And Foxy Brown's brother rats her boyfriend out to like the drug dealers he's working with. So they kill him. And now Foxy Brown wants revenge. And she finds out that the drug cartel he was involved with is sort of masquerading as a modeling agency. So she goes down there to be a model. She sort of wiggles her way in, but then she gets hemmed up and then sent to what they call the ranch, where two deliverance-looking guys are drugging and raping her. She is able to break free and, of course, kills everyone. In the process, too, her brother gets killed. But she gets revenge, primarily because the guy who's in charge of the cartel, when she kills him, she cuts off his penis and delivers that in a jar to his girlfriend, the actor named
Kathryn Loder, who died shortly after this.
Who was in charge of the modeling agency. So that's like her double revenge, is that she kills everyone and also delivers the main guy's penis to his girlfriend. The end. Okay. I think this movie has a lot of significance, and I think Pam Grier comes out on top because she just looks like a star. And
well, she's able to navigate this kind of a terrible script written by David Sheldon, who later would exploit nature in Grizzly. But
it's not the story's not well written.
No, and that's why I think Coffee was a hit, and this was supposed to be a sequel to Coffee, I think. And they scrambled a lot of last minute changes. Like, you don't even know what she does for a day job in this, because she's a nurse in Coffee before she becomes a vigilante. And I think you can tell it feels not quite as rough around the edges story wise as the Dolomite film, a Rudy Ray Moore film,
sure.
but also like everything's just kind of being tossed in there to profit from coffee. But what's interesting, of course, Foxy Brown is the name that is entered the zeitgeist.
Yeah. I'm just going to go through my notes. The production value is not the lowest. We really see it. There's a fight scene where they're outside and there are onlookers, and they look like those were just people who were on the street that day when they were filming, who were just all looking at like the scene.
That probably was true, yeah.
So that definitely made it seem kind of cheap. Okay, the lady playing the girlfriend, the one who gets the penis in the jar.
Kathryn Loder, who's the head of this model agency.
I thought she looked like if you mix Wendy Malick and Kate Hudson. She has an interesting look, and she's always wearing these really big necklaces.
Yeah, the first one is like this big ugly owl necklace, and then every scene she's in, she has some kind of other accoutrement there.
Yeah. Okay.
But notably, Jack Hill wrote the role for her, and the studio didn't want to pay for her airline fee from New York to LA. But she was hospitalized in the previous film she did with him, The Big Dollhouse, which I think shot in the Philippines.
She died from complications from diabetes?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think she didn't find out she was diabetic until she was on the set of that previous film. And I don't, there's probably some really interesting story about her, but she was a notable stage actress. And there's also a situation where she was injured while doing Antony and Cleopatra, which paved the way for Diana Sands, who also died tragically very young and is a very notable figure in the blaxploitation film movement, was able to take on this role. I think it was Antony and Cleopatra. And at the time, there weren't Black actors in stage work geared towards white audiences. So crossing the color lines. But Diana Sands, my favorite blaxploitation film is actually not Pam Grier. It's Willie Dynamite with Diana Sands. Anyway.
Oh. So Pam Grier looks great. She has a lot of screen, like charisma, uniqueness, nerve, and talent. But her outfits are popping.
Yeah.
She looks, whoever did the costuming,
Ruthie.
She looks phenomenal. None of them make sense. Well, not none of them. Like when she goes to the modeling agency and she has to look really nice, that makes sense. But like when she gets a call from her brother and she has to run down to the outfit she's wearing doesn't look like something you'd put on if you were in a hurry to get out.
She is very well coordinated. Yes.
Yeah, but she looks fantastic.
There's that scene in the red dress with the long hair where I could see Megan Thee Stallion playing this character in a remake. If they remade Shaft, I don't know, they could redo
I'm sure Pam Grier influenced so many young women. She just looks phenomenal with the afro, with the straight hair. She just looks great.
Although, the hair doesn't make sense with she was wearing that long hair and then there's no way you had an afro.
Well, it's clearly a wig.
It's clearly a wig because she's hiding a gun under it.
Yeah, at one point we see she's hiding a pistol in her afro. Speaking of guns, so Antonio Fargas plays Foxy Brown's brother,
Link.
And she, at one point, because she finds out that he ratted her boyfriend out, she confronts him and shoots him in the ear, like just the tip. And then she tears up his apartment, which I thought was funny because she's just randomly picking up things and throwing them. There's a scene that you thought maybe was inspired Zoolander.
Oh, there you go with Will Ferrell. The scene where Kathryn Loder is like bitching at, because we're told at one point that she's a stable of the finest call girls in the country, which is kind of a lie.
Because the modeling agency is really like a high-class prostitution ring.
Yes. And she's telling this one girl, bitching about how the dress is fitting her, and she's like, what does she say?
Why is that dress so tight on her? I told her to lose 5 pounds. She has 3 days to lose it.
You have three days to get rid of it.
But that sounds like Will Ferrell in Zoolander when he says,
lose 5 pounds immediately.
Yeah, lose 5 pounds immediately.
Is your fat getting in the way by needle or something?
Oh yeah. Okay, when Foxy Brown gets to this agency, there's another woman there who she partners up with, who you said looks like if you mix Laomi with Kimberly Elise.
She definitely does.
She's beautiful. She has a very distinct look.
That's playing Claudia or Claudine, Juanita Brown.
Juanita Brown. And then it's Juanita Brown and Pam Grier together. They seduce this old white man who's like a judge. And that was funny to me because Juanita's like sort of like standing on the bed in her bra and panties and sort of like
touching herself.
Well, but it's almost like she's trying to highlight her crotch. That was That wasn't very sexy.
It's not sexy, and she's also, she's a beautiful woman, but I think her acting skills are a testament to how good Pam Grier is in being able to navigate this kind of material, because she can't, and she also
Pam Grier can act. Yeah,
that's true, because Juanita Brown also headlined her own kind of women in prison film directed by Jonathan Demme. I'm forgetting the name of, actually, like Prison Big Heat, that she was in another film like Pam. She was kind of Pam Grier's competition, really.
Obviously there's a lot of like derogatory language, racial epithets. When Pam Grier, the one that bothered me the most is when when Foxy Brown ends up at the ranch,
Mm-hmm.
and that guy is like, they're injecting her with heroin and then raping her. One of them calls her a big jugged jigaboo. That took me out. Like, but speaking of epithets, Foxy Brown uses the F slur like 4 times. And it's so interesting to me because it doesn't really make sense, because she's referring to, in 2 instances, men who are trying to have sex with her. So I don't know why.
Well, she's emasculating them by saying that.
Right.
It's kind of like the only way she can exert agency by,
Sure. I mean, I get it. And I'm not like, it's problematic. It always seems funny to me that word is used in that way.
Oh, of course.
Because I mean, the person's actually doing something that I guess would be the opposite of that.
It is,
but what you said makes sense.
But again, it's just, I think that's why a lot of people like blaxploitation cinema too, though, is they're seeing things that would be sanitized today, even though there's racism still exists and homophobia still exists, but that kind of is all sanitized when we're navigating villainy. Which I think is why people still keep going back to this cycle of films, even though they are pretty problematic.
When Antonio Fargas gets killed, he gets shot when he's with his like white girlfriend,
his white cokehead girlfriend. Yeah.
And when he gets shot and he falls to the ground, he like crawls towards her and he screams, "Help, bitch!"
That's kind of a bad death, because he like twists and turns over. He is Antonio Fargas is giving it to you there.
That made me laugh. And then Sid, that actor was Sid Haig. He's in the film because Foxy Brown. Well, at first she ends up at a lesbian bar.
Oh, I was like, even the white lesbians are terrible people in this world.
Yeah, that was a pretty funny scene, because it's like I don't know if they like. I would love to know what that casting process was like, because they got some pretty butch ladies in there. Like, what did the casting call say in 1974 to get butch lesbians in the film? But when she's at a bar, Sid Haig, she's talking to him, and he tells her, "I'm the best damn airplane driver." And I laughed so hard, because I'm like, are you talking about a pilot?
Mm-hmm.
And then he calls Foxy Brown Dusky.
He calls her Dusky, and he says something else that references her complexion.
Well, then he tells her, "Keep your fuzzy little head out of sight."
That's like...
But I don't know what I think Dusky meant, except doesn't dusk mean when it gets dark?
Yeah, so
he's calling her like a darky?
She's melanated, yeah.
It's so out of control.
It's just awkward, because she has to kind of smile and nod.
The most memorable scene, I guess, is at the end, because she needs him to help her fly a plane. So they're like in this propeller plane trying to take off, and they run into a guy and shred him. I mean, that's pretty.
And it doesn't look bad, really.
No. But that's all I have. I think, you could talk a lot about these types of films, and I think people dismiss them as being exploitative and having no value, which I think is really unfair. I liken it to when you think about depictions of gay people in cinema, especially like in the 80s and 90s, where it was like clearly the butt of a joke.
Yeah.
But we kind of needed that exposure to normalize a group of people to then get to a better place now. And I feel like even though the people who were creating these blaxploitation films were clearly exploiting a group of people, the net value of it all, I would say, is positive. I mean, reinforcing stereotypes in general are always negative, but reinforcing stereotypes.
Yes, and not all of these films in this cycle, even outside of Pam Grier, were trying to exploit Black people either. Like, I think something like Willie Dynamite is really trying something different. I think Truck Turner with Nichelle Nichols, I think is somebody somewhere had a thought to for empowerment, I think, more than what you see, at least in Foxy Brown.
Sure. But I think the proof is in the pudding in that many of these actors did not ever transcend these types of movies.
Because once the blaxploitation cycle, once that fell out of favor, there was no place for these people to go. There weren't, there wasn't a stable of Black writers and directors, really, and there still really isn't for decades to come, where there would be these opportunities. Like Pam Grier in the 80s, you know, I remember a Steven Seagal film that she did, but it really wasn't until the mid 90s with John Carpenter and Quentin Tarantino kind of utilizing her again and giving her to a new audience.
Yeah. What would you give this movie?
I think 2.5 is fair. Again, I think if you haven't watched any of these 5 films, Coffee is really the best representation of Pam to me. So, and again, it's the same director, but I think everybody had a lot more time to develop that film more. And it's only a year before. I highly recommend that.
The only reason to watch this film, in my opinion, is to see Pam Grier. She's captivating, but it's not a great movie. I would give it 2 out of 5. Pam Grier is a 5-star person, but
yeah, I agree.
The movie is a 2 out of 5. I mean, there are a lot of plot holes. Quite frankly, it's doing too much. I feel like we could have just had her infiltrate this high-class prostitution ring in an effort to figure out who killed her boyfriend. And then it all culminates with the truth, which is that maybe she didn't know her boyfriend was an undercover.
Which is, and you know, it's sad that everybody goes to this film more, but it's because it's really recycling the plot of Coffee. Is she has to infiltrate this drug ring after her sister overdoses, I believe. And there's just a lot more interesting things, I think, going on. Friday Foster is a film I love, but not for Pam, for Eartha Kitt.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
For people who haven't seen that, you have to watch it for Eartha Kitt. She's a fashion designer and she puts on a fashion show. And I think the theme is like the seasons of
SEX. Kalahari Sunrise. Yeah, it's
worth it for that. I'm sure. I think you can actually, if you go to YouTube, or you're on YouTube now, after we're done, search Eartha Kitt, Friday Foster. That entire scene is on there.
And I think Scatman Crothers is in that, and Yaphet Kotto. Yeah, that's a fun film too. Sheba Baby. Again, I think out of the 5 that we chose, technically the only one that is a non-white person directing it is Eddie Romero of Black Mama, White Mama. But
okay, I'll go through comments. What do you think of Dino Rissi's The Easy Life?
Il Sorpasso. You know, I have that on Criterion. I've never watched it.
What about John Sayles' Limbo?
I love Limbo with David Strathairn and Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio.
And what about Twin Falls, Idaho?
That is the Polish brothers, one of whom is married to Kate Bosworth now, I think, or was. I have only seen that once. I probably am due for a rewatch because it's been 20 years. That's like 1999.
I don't remember Jackie Brown. I know that you say you like it.
We watched it, God, in the past 5 years, because there's all those references to Long Beach, and there's one scene where it was down the street from kind of where we live. But yeah, Jackie Brown's great.
Hello, Portugal. Hello, Nashville. Oh, someone loves our channel and our podcast. Thank you. Where are we? At home? Mm-hmm. In my house.
Are you safe?
Well, not now. I'm gonna be sick. We live in LA, and I'm sitting in our living room. What is the name of the movie where Pam Grier is chained to another girl and they have to run?
That's Black Mama, White Mama, which is kind of riffing on The Defiant Ones with Tony Curtis and Sidney Poitier. That's early Pam. And I don't love it, but Arrow Video did put it out a nice Blu-ray.
There is a scene where when Pam Grier is tied up in the ranch, when those guys, I don't know why I'm trying to be tied up. When she's tied up at the ranch, when the guys are giving her heroin, she has to grab a razor blade with her mouth, and that's how she cuts herself out.
Mm-hmm. And yes, Jackie Brown is not a version of Foxy Brown. It's a completely different film.
Yeah, I was reading about how, a lot of people dismissed like a film like this specifically because of the hypersexualization of this Black female. But then a lot of people found it to be like sort of a feminist action.
Well, Pam Grier has said that people didn't see Black women as beautiful. So by her showing her breasts and her nipples was a statement that, again, it's kind of like crabs in a bucket. It's like, I want to be exploited just like these white women are being exploited. There's an argument for that too. But also, yes, there was no space for Black bodies in this way that would sexualize them. So sure, that maybe is the silver lining. But I think, from a more progressive perspective, decades later, it reads as kind of gross and like she's being taken advantage of. But
I can't speak for women, but hearing Pam Grier say that she found it empowering that she could show Black bodies in a beautiful way that is sexy, I respect that. And also, especially during this time, if there were young, specifically Black women who saw this movie and saw this character and felt empowered by it, I think that has a lot of value. But I can see how people are on both sides of the fence.
It is, because you can't dismiss that in many of these scenes. I don't know that they're sexy. She's also more often raped. She has to go through some kind of traumatic incident, which is...
Well, from my perspective, what's most troubling is that, these weren't Black creatives really. They weren't a part of the creative process. I mean, Pam Grier had some agency in how she was shown, but these weren't Black writers, Black directors making these films. So that's what's difficult, is to have these non-Black people show Black people in this light. It just feels icky.
Mm-hmm.
But again, the net value of...
Because I was just reading about Buck and the Preacher, Sidney Poitier's first film, which he directed kind of accidentally because there's supposed to be a white director, that both himself and Harry Belafonte fired Joseph Sargent because they're like, no, we need a Black director to tell this story because you are going in a different creative direction that's not exemplifying what we want. And I think there's a good case in point of, can you imagine if a Black woman had been able to direct Pam Grier in the 70s?
Yeah. His White Cokehead Girlfriend, a memoir. What's the last movie Pam Grier did? Do you know? Well, I know she's in The L Word.
She was
the reboot.
She was in Palms with Diane Keaton. She's still working. She has stuff coming out.
Yeah, Sid Haig is in the Rob Zombie movies, and he looks a little rough. So it's interesting to see him younger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you could tell that he was not gonna age well.
No, but he looked pretty good with the facial hair.
He doesn't look terrible. I think it's just the texture of his skin is, not the best. Oh, I lost my place. Hold on. A memoir.
And Kathryn Loder was pretty extra.
That's the
white lady.
Yeah.
I thought she was kind of funny.
I thought her haircut was interesting.
Not as extra as Shelley Winters in Cleopatra Jones, however.
Yeah, she's unhinged.
That is some extra shit. And another great figure is Tamara Dobson playing Cleopatra Jones.
Oh, she's so beautiful.
We just saw her. She had a bit part in the film Fuzz, starring Raquel and Burt Reynolds.
Oh, that's right. Who had a small role in Fort Apache, the Bronx? I'm not sure.
Who had
she had a small role in Fort Apache, the Bronx too. I'm not sure. Have you seen Pecker? Is that with Eddie Furlong?
Yeah. I've never seen that film. John Waters.
I know I saw, but I don't remember. I would rewatch it though. Maybe. Well, we should do a John Waters poll.
I have actually never seen Cecil B. Demented all the way through either.
Oh, you can add that to the list. She's in Mars Attacks and Ghost of Mars. Who's that?
Pam Grier.
Oh, Pam Grier. Pam Grier's in Mars Attacks?
Yeah.
Oh.
Ghost of Mars is the one John Carpenter film I've never seen, which will be remedied soon, I think.
When is your next meetup? Oh, we didn't have a first meetup. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not opposed to that, but.
What meetup?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Someone said, when is your next meetup? But we didn't have a first meetup. I'm assuming that means like people can meet us.
Oh, yeah, no, that hasn't happened.
That hasn't happened yet. I mean, people could meet us. I just don't know where and when, but yeah, we should figure that out. Well, most people aren't in LA either. So I think that makes it difficult. People like Jackie Brown.
Yeah, Jackie Brown's pretty
What
good.
do you think of Tie Me Up, Tie Me Down?
Almodovar. Back in the day, that was unavailable here. I remember I had to pay a pretty penny to buy that on Region 2, but thankfully Criterion has a nice Blu-ray restoration of that. That's great. Victoria Abril. That might even have an NC-17 rating, but yeah, that's Almodovar. Yeah.
Did you like The Candy Tangerine Man?
Sure. I actually have that on a disc with a film I like better called Lady Coco, starring Lola Falana.
We're in a new location because there's a dead body in the kitchen. No. What is your thought about Mandingo?
Ugh. That movie's hard to sit through. I've seen it once, and it was with you, and I think we did a podcast on it.
Oh yeah, we have a podcast episode titled Mandingo. So I will direct you there because I don't remember what I thought, except I didn't like it. It was hard to sit.
It's
through.
a racist soap opera.
Yeah, but yeah, we have a podcast episode called Mandingo.
With James Mason doing a really bad Southern accent.
The only thing I remember is the main guy is attractive.
The football player, yeah, Ken, what's his face?
And then the white woman looks like a drowned, harassed rat. I remember that. That's all I remember.
It has not aged well. I remember being at a garage sale with my mom, and somebody was selling that book, and we were, checking out. And my mom was like, "You're not buying that."
Oh yeah, someone else mentioned that they were curious what the hell the writers' room and rehearsals look like in Foxy Brown. Yeah, I'd be so curious. I'm sure there's no documentary type footage about it, but
I don't think that there probably was no rehearsal.
Well, I think as a Black person in the 70s wanting to be in entertainment, I'm assuming everyone in the film wanted to, be in film. There's some internal sort of navigating that one has to do to agree to do something like this. And I'm sure for some of them, it was like, whatever, I'm going to be in a movie. I don't care how I look. And for some of them, like Pam Grier, more thought went into it. Like maybe this could be beneficial. But yeah, having to hear people recite these lines to them, that would be hard.
Yeah, well, and then it's normalized that they will be in pockets of society where they're just really going to be treated like that, and they have to deal with it. Seems. But Pam was also notably somebody who was hired because she would go to extremes. Because I remember, I think it might have been that Roger Corman documentary where somebody's like, "Hire Pam, you can set her on fire."
Pam Grier's a Colorado woman. She's from
that.
Colorado, or she lives in Colorado. You know what? I picture her not living in Hollywood, but good for her. What's on tap for the podcast tomorrow? I don't know what the secret film is, but we're gonna talk about Swarm.
Yeah, we will,
because we finished it. So if you want to know what we think about Swarm, listen to the podcast tomorrow. I'm surprised Joseph is open to a meetup since you warn us to always be vigilant with strangers. People are crazy. I agree. People are crazy. But my big thing with strangers is not letting strangers take you to another location or going to a strange location. So meeting people at bars, going back with them, letting them come back with you, going straight to a stranger's house. But I think meeting at a bar, because the other thing too is if I go to a bar, I'm in a room with a bunch of strangers anyway. So if they talk to me, it's whatever. I feel safe in a bar. I'm not going to bring anyone to my house or go home with anyone.
And I'll take candy from strangers.
I wouldn't.
I'm kind of kidding,
but yeah. So it would just be coordinating. Yeah. Oh, 100. Oh yeah. Congrats on 100 podcast episodes.
Good job.
Which one of you has the shorter temper?
I think it depends on the situation and what it's about.
I would say it's you.
No.
You get funky so fast.
You get funky. Oh my God. If we're out in public and somebody that he doesn't know very well says something that he doesn't like, oh my God, never wants to see that person again.
Well, I think that's
won't even say it. Just I don't need to see them.
But that's not having a short temper though.
Okay.
My tolerance is very low.
Sure.
But I don't get angry. I'll just be like, oh, you don't exist. And I'm just moving on. You get funky really fast. Instantly. You're very easy to provoke.
Well, I mean, some things you can't just let some things roll over you. Like you have to. I'm gonna
Well,
take
you
a
don't need
stand for
to
things.
excuse it. It's just the fact that, it's not about why you're a short temper. It's just the fact that you do. Like, you're mad now.
I'm not mad.
Uh, I lost my place again. Who is your hall pass actor? What does that mean?
Like who you can sleep with. Is that what that means?
Yeah, I'm not sure what hall pass. Is that what that means? Oh, well, that's a moot point. Anyway, are we happy for Gwyneth Paltrow? Um,
Sure, girl, but
you know what? I didn't even know what this trial was about until yesterday when I thought, oh, let me read what it's about. So apparently she was skiing in 2016 and collided with someone else, an optometrist, I think a retired optometrist. And he claimed she ran into him, but she said he ran into her. So that's what the trial's about. And he wanted like 3 million, but then would have settled for 300,000. And of course, Gwyneth Paltrow could have easily wrote a check for 300, but she felt like she was not going to be, she knew that she didn't run into him.
right. Good for her. I don't really care for her as a human, but good for her.
I don't know that lady to say I don't like her. I feel like she's in a different world than I am. So like the shit she sells on Goop would not be something that would relate to me. But I do feel like if you know that you're not wrong and you want to take the time to prove that, then I guess good for her. And also listening to that optometrist talk about, like, hearing details about what he said about her and the incident itself just feels like you were trying to take advantage of maybe getting a big check from this rich celebrity. And many people do that, right? Many people, you get into a car accident and a lawyer tells you they can get you 100,000. You're going to go with it, probably. If I've been through that, so I would never do it again. It's not worth the money to me. But, I could see how maybe someone convinced this man that he could get 3 million out of Gwyneth Paltrow because they probably thought, oh, she doesn't want the publicity. And so I kind of like that, you know, he was proven wrong.
I do too. Again, I feel much the same way about her as I do Kate Hudson. Is just like why this boring thin white lady has to be something that we have to see splashed everywhere. But
Are you still working on a film together? Would totally support that via a fundraiser. I'm so glad you say that because, yes, Nick is in the process of writing. It's a very slow process, but well, it's true.
well, yeah.
So once everything's in place, then I'm sure we will ask for money.
Probably, but we're trying to do micro budget. But
I'm so excited for the Swarm review. Oh, well, we didn't take any notes, so it'll just be like overall thoughts on the series. I used to take class from Richard Lawson, who famously used to be in a ton of these movies. He would always bring up these films and insist that they were high art. Now he is Beyonce's stepdad. Yeah, he's married to Tina. That's interesting.
yeah, we just saw him in How Stella Got Your Groove Back. How Stella Got Her
I
Groove
think we
Back.
saw him in something even more recent.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Have you seen The Forger?
No, not yet.
I've been binge listening to your podcast with total delight. It's chock full of unexpected, juicy commentary that's fantastic. I do think our podcast is good. You don't know because you don't listen to it.
I listen to it. You have it on in the car quite a bit.
But you don't listen to it on your own.
I don't listen to any podcasts on my own.
Right. So the answer is...
And not because I'm anti-podcast. I don't have time. But
Megan Thee Stallion for Foxy Brown remake. I was thinking, I don't know that, like, how would you remake Foxy Brown today?
You could. Shaft has been redone a couple times now with Samuel L. So yeah, somebody could remake.
Yeah, but I thought the remake was kind of like...
No, the last one was good.
I don't remember.
With his son.
That's right.
And Regina.
But these themes and like the environment that don't really match 2023, you know?
They can do something. So a good writer could make something really good.
Because then I get flashbacks to Proud Mary with Taraji.
Well, Proud Mary's trash.
Which was terrible because it's just like, it's so unrealistic. Like, it would just have to be, I don't know. I would, I feel like a James Bond type film or like a James Bond character that was a Black woman, I would find that really appealing. Or speaking of Swarm, it's the second to the last episode where we get like the documentary about the series. Initially, I thought that detective lady, that would make a really good show.
You could do something. You could the sky's the limit. Somebody could write a good. It's just a name, Foxy Brown. You could make that. You could make her be anything. You could make her be a PI. Like she doesn't have to be an exploited nurse. Like
no, but then to me, that's like other films where they just take the name of something. It's like this is not even that. Like Foxy Brown is Pam Grier in this movie. So if you wanted to redo it, I don't know.
And I suppose we kind of get that with Foxy Cleopatra and Austin Powers Goldmember.
I feel like it'd have to be a comedy, but to make a series.
Well, that last Shaft movie kind of was a comedy.
What I was saying yesterday is you couldn't remake Foxy Brown today as like a story set in 1970s because the language that was used, and like I feel like people would have a really hard time with that.
Sure.
What are your thoughts on Ollie, Fear Eats the Soul?
Fassbinder. It's excellent. Also kind of a remake of Douglas Sirk's All That Heaven Allows. But yeah, that's one of Fassbinder's best films.
I don't think you read Pam's autobiography.
I have not, but I should.
I do know that she talked about
Richard Pryor
putting cocaine on his penis. I do know that part. Strangers with Candy is a hilarious show. Nick has the box set. I've watched every episode multiple times. Nick clearly has a shorter temper.
Well, you don't know me, whoever.
Oh, let's see, mad.
Well, I'm just saying, I have to defend myself.
From who? Who's attacking you? Are you not safe in this house?
What did this person say about you that you're the?
I wouldn't say that I'm warm, kind, and lovely.
No,
but I think I'm like
you can be.
Yeah, I don't think that I'm a warm, kind.
I've been with this man for 15 years. Warm, kind, and lovely is not.
But
is not the general setting.
But you have a shorter temper, and you get mad much more easily.
I think you're mistaking madness for I'm not that bothered. Like I will immediately forget that.
You're mad right now.
I'm not mad. I have a point to make that I will use my voice to make.
You get funky so fast.
Funky's not mad.
Oh yeah, that's what hall pass means.
What does it mean?
What we said.
Okay.
Like an actor you could sleep with. I mean,
I don't know. Like I think
he does whatever he wants to do anyway. I don't know.
Right.
But to be serious, I don't really.
I don't think either of us. The thing is, most male actors identify as heterosexual, and the last thing I'm going to do is lust after a heterosexual.
Yeah, I'm not really attracted to people who wouldn't be attracted to me. Or,
yeah.
I don't always know who would be, but I think like a famous person who identifies as straight, I'm not lusting after.
Right.
I think most people are good looking in some way. Like I used to get made fun of a lot for that I would think everyone's good looking. Everyone has something about them, but it's like how they connect with you, and
yeah, there's a lot that goes into
there's
it.
many things. So I think to me, lusting after I don't know, name any actor on TV just feels kind of pointless because I don't know anything about them. And then having worked around a lot of famous people are not what they look, what they play in a movie is not how they are. And they look very different than, if you're attracted to that body's only good for 2 weeks. And they film all that in all those shirtless scenes of so-and-so are all filmed in a 1 week period. And then after that, they just get off the diet and people smell funny and have weird fingernails. People are not what they see them on TV. Would you ever consider reviewing TV series such as the Patrick Ian Polk cult classic, Noah's Ark? We did watch all of Noah's Ark a long time ago, right?
We did. And I've met a couple people from there. I've Doug Spearman's story we could probably tell one day.
Well, I probably wouldn't want to review Noah's Ark just because I think it's an important series. I don't think it's very good. But I think the characters and the storylines are kind of fun.
Sure. Yeah.
But, and yeah, I mean, it's an important series.
I agree. It's groundbreaking.
Yeah. But
Patrick.
But to answer the question, probably not that one. But if we did watch a series, we would, because nowadays I don't watch anything unless I can talk about it. So if we did watch a series, I would talk about it like on the podcast, but I wouldn't do like a full review.
Patrick Ian Polk was also the one that threw Monique a bone by casting her in Blackbird, if you remember.
Why did you think Mike Epps would be hanging out with Beyonce? That's a story I told on the podcast. Well, it was 2002 or 2001. So she wasn't, I mean, she was popular, but she, you know,
She wasn't Queen Bey.
And also I had already met her because she had already performed at our casino for the Radio Music Awards. So I had like met her like just to take her up to the thing. And so it didn't seem that unreasonable that she would be like at our hotel again. So I think, but yeah, in hindsight, it seems stupid that I would think like, why is Mike Epps with Beyonce? But I was naive. I'm naive now. Oh, someone listens to our podcast while they're washing dishes or doing other chores.
I like multitasking as well.
I know that we need to watch Atlanta.
Yes, and I like Donald Glover quite a bit.
Yeah, so I'm not opposed to Atlanta.
Early Donald Glover, that's a lot of fun, is Mystery Team. Do you remember with Aubrey Plaza?
That sounds familiar.
Oh, okay, I remember really liking it.
The only time I post the podcast on YouTube is when we do them on Zoom, because I already have that video file. But when we do the podcast normally, well, she got 3 servings of cat food. When we record the podcast normally, we don't record it like video, and we sit kind of in front of each other. It would take a lot for it to look right. The way our microphones are set up and the lighting, that would be a lot of work. On Zoom, it's different, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe, I mean, the podcast is growing a lot. So I think at a point, you know, I might redo the setup where we film to include microphones. So then we could very easily. The other thing too is on the podcast, in the videos, I'm talking to the audience, right? Like in the reviews, you're talking to people. But on the podcast, we're talking to each other. So we face each other. So I don't know that I'd want to do the podcast if I'm not looking at you. I mean, wouldn't want to do it, but it would have a different feeling, don't you think?
Sure.
Because there'd be a lot of me turning to you.
Mm-hmm.
So then it's
like RuPaul, where.
Yeah, it's like, it would be a really awkward, like lots of like profile. I'd have to figure that out. I mean, I know people do it. Like they have the dual video. We need to get like 100,000 subscribers, and then maybe, I don't know. Yes, that was a Scissor Sisters reference. I would watch. Tiana Taylor was on The Breakfast Club talking about her new role in 1001. I really like that movie.
Yeah, and she's very good in it.
I have been watching interviews with her. She's quite the character. Oh, I'm glad people love or enjoy the podcast. Oh, someone read Pam's autobiography. I would be into it.
Yeah, I need to read that.
I'm Team Nick. You don't have a short temper. You're just not here for the foolishness.
Yes.
I always wanted to see a movie starring Pam Grier and Max Julian. Oh.
Yeah.
What sign is he? Who?
We're both Scorpio.
Us? Yeah, we're Scorpios. We're so funny. Oh yeah, I'm not mad merch. That would be a good one for you.
I mean, don't get it twisted. If I'm mad, like that's, different.
Yeah, because then you turn red and start screaming.
Screaming.
You do. And you do your street fingers. And then I just sit here like, okay.
I gesticulate when there's a point to be made.
Do you have any new book recs? Anything getting adapted we should read?
Oh God, I'm behind because I'm reading a bunch of Jim Jarmusch stuff right now.
I love that name. Do you want to say why you're reading Jim Jarmusch?
I'll be interviewing him and one of his
You're interviewing Jim Jarmusch for Spin Magazine because you're going to talk to him about his new album.
Yes, through Squirrel.
What's Squirrel?
The name of the group.
Oh,
that the album is from.
Joseph comes across as such a sweetie. Well, I think Nick is a sweeter person, like between the two of us. But in the real world, I'm nicer. I think you're not between us, you're nicer to me. But out in public, I would be nicer.
Well, yeah, I'm not going to give away this niceness to all these strangers on the street. Like you gotta, like I gotta let you in, and I don't let just anybody in. Like you gotta earn that. You gotta earn my respect. You gotta earn that vulnerability. Like I'm not just going to do that for anybody.
You're doing all my lawyering for me. You're proving my point very easily.
Well, I'm just saying.
I think you're Nick. I think you're pretty chill generally.
Yes, I'd like to. I don't like to get the heart rate up. It's bad for cortisone levels.
What? That is the opposite of how you are.
I try.
I lost my place. You're mature. Inner beauty. If it ain't on the outside, I would like to hear more about your love story, of course. Only what you are willing to share.
I think we talked about that.
Yeah, I'm not sure what I would like, what there is to say. Well, usually when people ask me about like being married so long and dating, and I've been very lucky in love. I never had a hard time dating. I actually really liked dating. People were very nice to me, very generous. I had a lot of fun. I dated a lot of people. So to me, I think that really helped me recognize, like, because all the people I dated and hung out with were all very nice. So my impression of like relationships and romance was that, oh, everyone's really nice. So then when I met Nick, it felt like, oh, that's something different. Like it was like a different level that I had never experienced. So I'm not saying everyone has to be, everyone has to spread like mustard, but I do think it's beneficial when someone like me, and you had a similar-ish experience with having had a lot of experience with other people. Like, it's not, I hate when people say like, oh, I know what I want and what I don't want. That does not apply to me. I don't know what I want today. So I don't think I knew what I wanted when I met Nick, but I did know that there are a lot of really nice people out there who'd be very sweet to me. So like, what's different about this situation that would make me want to like be serious about it? And then seeing that you were different was very recognizable to me. Because I think, who does that joke about you can catch a white lady with nuts and berries?
Patrice O'Neal.
It's not about the white lady thing. It's just like some people really, it does feel like you could do the smallest gesture. Even ladies that, there are people I know who, the way they talk about like someone they're dating, or even like their current husband who they met, like it was like their second boyfriend, and they talk about the little things they do. To me, it's like, that's the bare minimum.
Right. It's like he asked how your day was.
Yeah, like, oh my God, he asked me, like, that's the bare minimum. Or like, I expect you to do things for me. Like, I mean, it's true. And you should expect me to do things for you. You don't really ever ask me, but like I would, but I expect that. And I would also expect to reciprocate that. Whether or not you execute that is separate, but like I expect to do things if you want me to do something, if you, like go above and beyond. And then sometimes it's like,
well, and giving your time and being and communicating about what are your expectations, what do you want from me? Like so many people like are just like beating around the bush. It's like, do you want to be with me? Like, what do you want?
I don't know how boring this is because I can go on and on, but I agree. Yeah, it's just, and also like relationships are dynamic. So you have to evolve and grow, and it's uncomfortable. And some days you're not going to like the person. You're going to like, it's up and down.
And also like, just, you need to stick with being yourself. Like I've already, by the time I met you, I don't know how many people told me I was too intense or too much of this or blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, that's me, rather than dating somebody for a bit. Or I'd also have experiences where it's like, oh, I guess I'll just try to hide who I really am. And then it's like, but the real you comes out. And then I don't know. Like,
well, I think that's relevant because I think it's okay to know, like, there are things about you I don't like, and there are things about me you don't like, or that annoy you, or you know what I mean? Like, and that's just what it
Well, it's
is.
being human.
Because what do I always say? Like, I'm not trying to change you. I don't want you to be something different to appease me. Like, you need to be you, and then I get to decide if I like that or not. And there are just some things I don't like. And it's like, well, is that enough to leave? Well, no, I guess not. So it's like, well, how do I deal with it? And there has to be a balance. Like, I'm not going to find someone better for me. There might be someone who doesn't do the thing that annoys the shit out of me, but they're going to do something else that, like,
What does Jamie Lee Curtis say? Don't leave.
well, and then it's also like,
Or-
to me, not everyone, but to me, like, having a history with someone has a lot of value. So maybe, like, there are moments when things aren't the best or it doesn't feel the best, but there's also a lot of value in what we've built together. So then it's like, well, sometimes I hold on to that, you know, when things maybe don't feel the best. So I just think people give up so quickly, but you should, right? If you're not in a good situation, you
Of
should
course,
leave.
yes.
But I don't know. As someone who had a lot of experience, I feel like, you know, do you want to be married? Do you want to play house? Do you want to live with someone? Like, I think people end up in situations that really aren't aligned with their spirit.
Hmm.
And I'm not going to pretend that when I met you, the life we have today is what I wanted or saw for myself. I didn't know anything.
I didn't
I
either.
just went with it. And I have a very nice life that is bigger than I would have imagined. That doesn't mean it's perfect or that I love it all the time, but I just went with it. So I'm not saying that you need to know exactly what you want when you meet someone, but what's the intention? Like, what? Some people are just out here constantly like serial dating, like 6 months, a year, just what is the purpose? Like, do you want to settle down? It sounds like maybe you don't. The way some people talk about dating is like, it sounds like you don't want to be tied down to someone, and that's okay too.
Well, yeah, and also part of being a relationship, it's not about monogamy per se, but it's like some sacrifices have to be made. Like you have to give up something. Like compromises have to happen. Excuse me.
I think people are
I'm
allowed to
ill.
define the relationship however they want to. And oh, the cat's made an appearance since people like that. Oh, and she's mad. The only person with a shorter temper than Nick is the cat.
She's not a person, but
Oh, that's true. Well, don't say that. Some people think their pets are people.
she's a being.
Yeah, I went on and on. I'm sure that's not what people were looking for anyway. We have great, we have the best and most hilarious natural chemistry. Uh, chicken. Oh, someone wants to hear the Doug Spearman story.
Well, let's talk about that.
Yeah, we'll.
I just saw him in a film too.
Nick does not teach at a university, but you should, because you would make an amazingly thorough instructor with high standards.
Why, thank you. I think people might not like my grading techniques, but yeah, I would have high standards, as I do in every possible avenue.
Are the rumors true that Joseph had a modeling career before YouTube fame? Yes, I used to model dog food. No. No one has ever paid me to take my picture. Yeah, the podcast without seeing each other would kind of feel like a phone call. Yeah, I think that would be a good analogy.
Yeah, which we do talk a lot on the phone too.
Do we? Well, yeah, I
Yeah.
guess. Well, I mean, I don't talk to anyone more than I talk to you. So it does feel like a lot. Well, it doesn't feel like a lot, but I guess you're the person I talk to the most on the phone. Oh, I guess I could upload just the audio. I actually thought about that, was uploading the audio to YouTube and then putting funny images relating to what we're talking about. Because I do like pulling images. The only problem is that would take a very long time. Because an hour episode to run through it and then save it and upload it would take like another 2 hours. So that would be a very long process. But it would be fun to listen to it and pull funny images. Maybe I'll experiment and see what that does. Have you seen The Constant Gardener?
Yeah, Rachel,
Not to be confused with Master Gardener.
correct. Constant Gardner, is that a John Le Carre book. I forget who wrote that book, but yeah, Rachel Weisz won Best Supporting Actress for that. And I remember I've seen it once. We own it. And I remember not being kind of enthralled as I felt I should have been.
Did you give book recommendations?
I didn't, sorry, because I'm stuck reading
Jim Jarmusch.
just things about Jim Jarmusch right now, and also Peter Straub's Julia. I says I've had no time, but you know, there's a bunch of stuff that I'm sure is going to be announced at Cannes. That a lot of adaptations that I think are in there, and I've been meaning to read Limonov and is it Poor Things that Yorgos Lanthimos has adapted. So those are things that are on my list to read very shortly.
Did you finish Kindred?
I finished the book. I didn't watch the series because, to be honest, after reading that book, I immediately wanted a break from that material.
That's fair.
And it's not something I feel like I could drag you into watching, but
that would be a tough one.
Yeah, but I will watch it. It's Hulu, so.
Can you replicate your street fingers?
I just get animated.
It's like that, yeah.
Like you're not gonna like it looks like I have little hot dog fingers from everything here.
Nick, what are some physical gestures or reactions you have when you're watching a movie you're not into?
Probably more on my face.
Well, when Nick is not, which happens all the time, when Nick is not interested in something, he talks over it. So like if we're in the car and I'm listening to a podcast and he thinks the people sound dumb, he'll like make fun of them. Or if I'm listening to music that he doesn't like, he'll like parody it. Like he'll make up his own lyrics.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm watching a movie that he doesn't want to watch, he'll like
there's never a movie I don't want to watch, but if it's not
but like you won't pay attention, or like you'll talk over it. Like if you're into a movie, you won't talk, but when you're not, you talk over it a lot.
Like Mr. Science Theater. Yeah, it's probably a bad habit, but
yeah.
But like when I'm into a film, there's also an engagement that happens too.
Do you two have a favorite documentary of a film? A documentary of a film? So like the making of a film?
Maybe like Room 237.
I was actually just going to say that, but that's only because that's the only one I can think of.
Well, what's the Werner Herzog Burden of Dreams? There's a lot of, oh, this bitch gonna fuck with the light.
Oh, the cat's about to knock down the ring light.
I'd need more time to think about it. I would want to write a really good list for you, but there are many.
Did we watch the documentary about Jared from Subway? No, but I read about him.
I think my parents watched that.
Yeah, he's a creep and stupid. I mean,
well, that and that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh. Well, yeah, I hope people like hearing us talk about relationships, I guess, because I did it for 10 minutes. Are you having a hard time breathing?
I just don't want to cough.
You might as well.
I would.
If you were a teacher, you'd give F's left and right.
I'd be like, get your ass out of my class. Like
the cat should audition for a movie.
I remember talking to some kid, he was in his early 20s at the Cleveland International Film Festival. A very nice, bright young person, and talking about how much he loved Get Out. I'm like, oh yeah, and I brought up he's like, I wrote this. I don't know if he said a dissertation about it. I'm like, oh, okay. So, when you compared it to the Stepford Wives, like, what's that? Oh, that would have been a paper thrown out. Like,
do you find yourself cringing from secondhand embarrassment while watching a movie? Sometimes I wish I could skip entire scenes. Yes.
Yeah, I do that a lot watching Drag Race, but like, I got to turn my face away.
Well, with something like Drag Race, there's a formula, and so I think after all these seasons, it's kind of cringy to see like, this cue the crying, cue the story about being bullied as a kid, which is all relevant and meaningful, and to the person saying it, it's not repetitive to them, but to the audience, it's like, well, I mean, it's a little exploitative because then they also pit them. It's like the film. The RuPaul's Drag Race is edited to create drama and sensationalize a lot of things, which is a formula, but then it's like also trying to be endearing. And I don't know, that just feels like if we want to show the queer experience and highlight drag, especially nowadays with legislature the way it is, I feel like maybe we need to step away from the drama and highlight why it's important and how talented these people are. So I do cringe a lot of Drag Race. But yeah, we watch movies where I'm just like, oh my God, this acting is unbearable. This dialogue is so stupid. No hard feelings.
Do you read any Otessa? I don't know how to pronounce her last name either. Yes, I have one book of hers. She's also quoted on the John Waters cover for Liar Mouth. If you knew me and you were in front of me, you wouldn't say I was passive aggressive, because I'm not passive aggressive. But that's just somebody online thinking they know better.
Oh, mad.
No, you just don't. You don't know me.
Oh,
I do say what's on my mind, but I don't know what you think I'm holding back from someone I don't know. But
mad. We never watched Squid Games.
I think I watched the first episode.
Oh yeah, I don't know anything about Squid Games. Living Bad and Bad Living.
Yeah.
Do you know he has a new one called Good Life that is about to premiere in Cannes?
That's exciting. Yeah, Cannes. I'm very excited to hear what's going to come out of Cannes. But I've interviewed him. I interviewed him for Blood of My Blood in the 2011 film, which I also highly recommend. But a lot of his work is hard to see here, at least in the US. But yes, I liked especially Bad Living, which was in competition. And I'm glad that did win something.
I don't know what the theme for the next live will be, but we'll come up with some. Well, no, we won't have a live next week because you're going to be gone.
I will be in New York, yes.
Interviewing Parker Posey
and Jim Jarmusch on the same day.
And Jim Jarmusch on the same day.
Mm-hmm.
So we won't have a live next week. Yeah. And then I guess I need to watch the secret movie for tomorrow's podcast.
Yes.
Is it long?
No.
How long is it?
I think an hour and a half. It's actually something I haven't seen. It's actually something that somebody recommended a year ago.
Oh, someone who gave a recommendation. You're choosing their film.
I am.
A year later.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's nice.
Well, it would have been the last time I chose, but it was the 100th episode.
Oh, okay. Well, is there anything else you'd like to say?
No.
Ta-ta.